Yeah, you tuned into the right place. Welcome to the rain. Golden Queuing. H2.0. Yeah. You're looking for a diamond, found a treasure in the rough. Tired of all the noise, cause you finally had enough. I'm here to build a movement on a mission for the nation. Dropping gems of knowledge, killing all the hesitation. We fighting for the truth, yeah, we fighting for what's right. Building unity and shining up a brand new light. It's a variety channel, but the vision's crystal clear. Pushing us all forward, conquering the doubt and fear. Welcome to the Queendom, H2.0 on your screen, where the content's real and smart and funny in between. This is more than just a stream, it's a platform for the change. Time to elevate the game and rearrange. If you're ready for a vibe that you can feel and trust, joining in the movement is a definite must. This ain't just another channel talking smack behind the screen. It's a spotlight for the creators, building up a better scene. Spreading radical love, that's the message in the code. Helping everybody carry up a heavy load. From social justice issues to the laughter that we need. Planting seeds of progress, watch them grow from just a seed. This is authentic, this is raw, this is everything you saw. Welcome to the battle that is truly being fought. Ooh, so come with your respect and see the real effect. Cause I protect my own right here on the throne. Don't make me envy. Unleash the dragon. Subscribe, ring that notification bell. Yeah, you don't wanna miss a thing. Welcome to the family. Yeah. They think we're sleeping while the world burns. Nah. Wake up, mic check, 1, 2, let's get into it. Check the plate, what they serving, is it life or a lab? Bill Gates pushing cultivated while the country's go mad. Italy said basta, but Canada's keeping it quiet. Clone meat, no labels, they just begging for a ride. From the Petri dish to the shelf, yeah, they're playing with the DNA. While the farmers in the mud are the ones who gotta pay. Technocracy rising, yeah, the future's looking synthetic. If you can't trust the harvest, then the whole system's pathetic. It's a blackout world in a spin, where the truth ends and the shadows begin. From the grid to the court, yeah, we're holding the line. They want us in the dark, but we're born to shine. Yeah, we see the play, we see the move. The world is in chaos, but we got the proof. Yeah, across the water to Havana, 11 million in the dark. The grid is collapsing, it only took a single spark. Infrastructure crumbling, children crying in the heat, while the protests erupt and the boots hit the street. Is it a blockade or is it just a failing regime? Either way, the people dying for the socialist dream. Total blackout, yeah, that's the ultimate control. When they cut the power, they're trying to reach for your soul. Now back to the States, where the courts are the cage. RFK Jr. tried to turn over the page. Wanted cuts to the schedule, wanted vaccines to halt, but a judge blocked the move. Now who's really at fault? Is it science, is it safety, or a lobbyist check? While the parents are the ones with the weight on their neck. We're caught in the middle of a legal medical war, just trying to figure out what we even fighting for. In Big D, the siren scream, the body cam is rolling. SWAT team moving in, yeah, the situation's tolling. Crockett's bodyguard, but wait, the story don't fit. Stolen plates, fake badges, yeah, the man was a myth. A felon in the inner circle, how'd he get that close? It's the masquerade of power that we fear the most. And now Joe Ken is walking, says the war is a lie, refusing to send the youth to Iran just to die. It's a blackout world in a spin, where the truth ends and the shadows begin. From the grid to the court, yeah, we're holding the line. They want us in the dark, but we're born to shine. Yeah, we see the place, we see the move. The world is in chaos, but we got the proof. Yeah, the world's getting heavy, but the voice stays loud. We ain't just another face in their digital crowd. From the lab, me to the war, keep your eyes on the prize. The revolution won't be televised, it'll be live. Peace. Yeah, that we got the proof, that we got the proof, that we got the proof, yeah. That we got the proof, that we got the proof.
Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl Golden. I'm back with another live, y'all. Sorry for the delayed start. I had to go run in there and give something to JJ real quick. But I hope everybody is doing okay. Thank y'all for coming to the live. It is about 12:15 p.m. here Eastern time in the Carolinas. And it's a pretty nice day outside, y'all. The sun is shining real bright. A little chilly, but not too cold. I hope you all are having a great day in whatever respectful time zone you're in, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And it is also St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. So happy St. Patrick's Day to anybody who is celebrating that or, you know, identifies with that holiday or anything like that. Maybe y'all just hanging out. Maybe you're having a good time. Maybe you're doing something like going to a parade. I see they had a few parades and stuff that I was watching online that was really cool and seemed pretty fun. So yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day, guys. I do have a few topics that I wanted to go ahead and talk about today that I did see come across my feed, y'all. Y'all know it's never a dull moment and there's always something going on. So let me go ahead and tell y'all what we'll be talking about today. We got 5 topics here. So the first one we're going to be talking about is Bill Gates, right? So Bill Gates is back lab-grown meat. And it apparently these meats have now hit the U.S. shelves. But countries like Italy and Hungary, they're actually banning this lab meat. And plus, they have the no-label clone meat scandal that is happening in Canada. We got a few reports and we'll get into that. We also have to send our thoughts and prayers to just about everybody in Cuba because they are in the dark. The island right now is looking at a wide blackout and it has plunged to 11 million almost now that are in total darkness. Is this a grid failure or is this a political tipping point or strategy? We also will be talking about RFK Jr. and his legal blow. A federal judge has blocked his attempt to slash the childhood vaccine schedules. And so we'll be breaking down, the court's reasoning for that. Also, we got to talk about this fatal unaliving of Representative Jasmine Crockett's bodyguard. There is some raw footage of that. We'll be taking a look at that as well. And apparently there was a shocking double life that Bodyguard had, as far as him actually being an outlaw or on the run, not what he said he was, so we'll get into all of that. And then our bonus topic that we'll be talking about is we have the rise of AI surveillance and digital IDs. Okay, so we'll be talking about a little bit of these topics as we go along, y'all. Let's get into it. I ain't gonna talk too much of here, I have the reports and stuff that I'm gonna show y'all, and then we'll watch it together while we're in the chat, and then talk about how we feel about this. So let's go ahead and get into this lab meat, y'all, because I had seen a video come across today where it was and I don't know if y'all watch Willie D, but Willie D was talking about, this lab meat has now been approved to be put on shelves in the US. And so I had to go ahead and look into it a little bit more and find some additional reports as to what is really going on. So one of the most latest reports that I was able to come up with, because this has been going on for a few years now with this lab meat. It's not like it's necessarily new, but there's a lot, happening as far as if it is going to be approved by the FDA, all of that type of stuff. Now, y'all tell me in y'all own personal opinion. And half of the time, honestly, I think the craziest part is we may not even know, y'all. We might be eating this daggone lab meat and not even know. That's the scariest thing, because they lie to you and they just give you anything. But this is a report from 1 year ago. I'm gonna let y'all listen to this because it hasn't changed. It's just upgraded. So, lab-grown meat. Why are countries banning it? Global story. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of this real quick, so y'all can hear exactly what it is going on with this lab meat, and then we'll get into the updates as far as why the US, which I'm not surprised, is looking to approve it, and other countries who actually care more so about their people are banning it. And they're saying it's unsafe, it's unhealthy, which of course it is, for their people to eat. So they're not going to allow it. But of course, us over here in the US, they allow anything for us over here, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into it quick, y'all. I'm just trying to get everything set up. The StreamYard moving a little slow today. Okay, here we go. I'm going to meet y'all in the chat. Let's listen to this report.
Hello there, I'm Lucy Hockings. From the BBC World Service, this is The Global Story. Today, would you eat meat that has been grown in a lab? What if it could help protect the planet? The UN estimates that emissions from livestock make up more than 14% of all man-made greenhouse gases, including methane. Lab-grown or cultivated meat is often touted as the solution to climate-friendly meat production that tastes exactly like the real thing. But it's only been approved for human consumption in the US and Singapore. Italy and the states of Alabama and Florida have all decided to ban lab-grown meat this year, despite not yet being available to buy. So why are some places trying to ban lab-grown meat before it's even hit the shelves? With me today in our London studio is Greer Jackson, host of the Climate Question programme on the BBC World Service. Hi, Greer.
Hi, Lucy.
And joining us from our Singapore bureau is Asia business reporter Nick Marsh. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Lucy. Hi, Greer.
Nick, you know exactly why you're here. You're not only in Singapore, which has the distinction of being the first country in the world to approve lab-grown meat, but, and this is the big thing, Nick, you are part of a very special club. You are one of very few people who has actually tried lab-grown meat.
Yeah, I have that dubious honour, Lucy. Obviously, I'm based here in Singapore. I'm a reporter here. And one of the things that people seem to be really, really interested in is the fact that Singapore is one of the only places in the world, the first place in the world, actually, where you could eat lab-grown meat. And back in 2021, there was this restaurant that was selling these sort of chicken nugget type things by a company called Good Meat. So I got asked to go down, try it, report back. And then last year, a butcher's started selling it as well. There was a bit of a sort of a renewed PR push from the company, I think, to try and get consumers interested. So You know, I did the same thing, did the honourable thing, sacrificed myself
took
for
one for the
journalism,
team,
had a bit
Nick.
of lunch. Took one for the team, exactly.
What about you, Greg? Would you try it?
As a journalist, I feel like I ought to, and as a climate journalist, especially given the impact that meat has on our climate. But on a personal level, you know, I'm not a big meat eater. I'm mostly vegetarian, so it isn't that appealing for me to try on a personal level.
Yeah, I found it quite challenging too. I mean, my dad was a farmer. So growing up, we just ate organic beef from cows that had been raised on the farm. So it's quite a leap for me to go from that experience as a child to eating lab-grown meat. But as a family in London, we eat a lot of meat and we are trying to cut down, not just for our health, but for the environment as well. So I think I also would probably be tempted to try it for journalistic reasons as well. But can you tell us, though, what are we actually talking about, Greer? What is lab-grown meat?
Essentially, what they're trying to do is replicate the process in a cow outside a cow. And they're doing that in a lab. And that means you don't have to slaughter an animal. So in theory, it's more ethical. And how they do that is they take a small biopsy, perhaps the size of a pea or a peppercorn. They take it back to the lab. They put it in something called a growth medium or a growth media. That's essentially a broth with lots of nutrients in that means the cells can grow. You keep it at body temperature, and it does indeed grow from something the size of a pea to a beef burger, or in Nick's case, chicken nugget sized.
The key thing is the texture and the taste. And Nick, you've already made it quite clear what a dedicated journalist you are, going out there and trying it for yourself. And of course, you recorded yourself doing it.
Here you go. Naturally, I had to try some too, of course. All right, so moment of truth. Smells like fried chicken. Yeah, tastes like fried chicken. Bit processed maybe, but no, you would never know where this came from.
Tell us the truth, Nick. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it?
First, I just want to say sorry, because there's nothing worse than listening to someone eat or watching someone eat if you're watching the podcast. No, I did like it, Lucy. I did, actually. I didn't know what to expect. But the main thing I would say is that I would have had no idea where it came from. You know, it tasted just like a chicken nugget. So the texture was the same. The taste was the same. It tasted like a bit of processed meat. It wasn't a plant-based sort of alternative that you've probably tried, where there's always something a little bit off. It was legit. I've got to say, it was legit.
I mean, one of the very best things about Singapore is the food. It's absolutely wonderful. You can get cheap, great food out all the time. What about the other people in the restaurant? What did they think, Nick?
The people in the restaurant were there because they wanted to try it. So they had a curious, open mind anyway. The reaction I got was pretty much the same as my own. Meat. It's perfect. I think if you went out into the street, or you went down to a hawker centre, something like that, and you started telling people about meat grown in a lab, I don't think you'd have got the same kind of reaction. People like their fresh produce here, so it'd take a lot of convincing to actually get people into that idea.
Why have they chosen to be one of the very first countries in the world where you can process and eat lab-grown meat?
Well, the Singapore government, they're always, you know, open to experimentation, to innovation. Frankly, they have the money to do that kind of thing. I mean, it's a small country, but they're always looking for what's going to kind of give them the edge, technology-wise. But also, Singapore's a country, a government at least, that's obsessed with food security. You know, this is a tiny little dot on the tip of Malaysia. 90% of everything that people eat and drink here is imported. And when COVID came around, that was a bit of a wake-up call. So the Singapore government started to look for alternatives. They give a lot of grants, tax incentives to companies that grow their own food here, things like vegetables. So, you know, lab-grown meat is just a step in that direction of increasing self-sufficiency one day.
What about in the rest of the world, though, Nick? As you've mentioned, Singapore just a dot. Is it taking off elsewhere?
The United States last year became the second country to authorize it. In terms of how widespread it is, in terms of how available it is to consumers, we're talking tiny, tiny numbers. I think there was a couple of restaurants in the States, in Washington and in San Francisco, that were offering this type of lab-grown meat. It's not something you're going to find in the shelves.
Nick was talking there about food security, but a lot of people in the world who are concerned about the environment are also concerned about the impact that eating meat is having, because animal agriculture is responsible for more gas emissions that damage the environment than flying. And I know in New Zealand, half of the emissions in New Zealand are from agriculture. So a lot of people are
All right, y'all. So I wanted to take a quick little break just so I can go ahead and read over some of the facts and stuff that I looked up as well. Some things that you heard them talking about now, and then they're going to talk about later. This video is actually like a whole interview. It's about 20 minutes. I'm probably not going to play the whole thing. I just want y'all to get an intro of what was going on with this. And again, this is 1 year old, this video. So this has been in talks and, you know, in processes for some time now. It's just now the update with it is getting approval from the FDA to be in certain countries, and certain countries are fighting against it being approved to be served or be on shelves in the stores and restaurants and stuff like that. So let's get into some of these news, because I think that maybe when, you know, people first do hear about this, that what comes to their mind first, what came to my mind first is, well, this must be where, you know, this Beyond the Meat comes from, and, you know, these vegan plant-based meats that are coming from. Maybe that's what it is, but this is wrong. It's not the same thing. Okay, so the lab-grown versus vegan meat is some very core differences when it comes to that. Okay, they are under the push and the oppression of telling us as the people that the lab-grown meat is actually real meat. It is just biologically identical to what you would get from an actual animal, such as a cow or a chicken, but it's grown without the animal. I don't understand how that happens. I really don't. And I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but let's read through some of these notes here in the, you know, key differences. So when it comes to the lab grown or the cultivated meats, the origin is that it's real animal cells, aka stem cells. Now, when it comes to vegan and plant-based meat, those are typically made from plants, soy, peas, wheat, mushrooms, things like that. Is this meat vegan? No, it's using animal cells to start. And vegan meat is vegan. It contains no animal products, is what they say. Now, as far as the nutrition, they say that with this lab-grown cultivated meat, it has the same traditional benefits as regular meat, you know, animals. And the nutrition for plant-based meats is plant-derived proteins and fats. The taste and the texture. Now, when it comes to the lab-grown meat, it's designed to be identical to real meat. So I'm going to show y'all in the next video we're going to watch. You'll see. You can see for yourself. They try to make it look identical to real meat, but, you know, anyone who is a meat eater, you can look at this and see it's something very different and off about this meat. But anyway, and then with the vegan plant-based meat, it's designed to mimic the taste and texture of real meat. And a lot of people who are vegan and plant-based and do eat these meat substitutes, y'all probably already know or have seen that, you know, it looks similar, but it's slightly off. It tastes, I guess, close, but slightly off. I have actually eaten some vegan meats and vegan products. I've tasted them. Some do taste good, you know what I mean? But you can tell like the look and the texture is different. And so when it comes to this lab-grown cultivated meat, some of the main brands that you may hear that's out there is Upside Foods and Good Meat. Those are the two brands that are selling this packaged meat. And of course, when it comes to vegan and plant-based meat, y'all know, y'all probably have heard of Impossible Foods or Beyond Meat and stuff like that. So anyway, let's get into a little bit of the science. So this is what they're saying. This is the Petri dish process. So the biopsy, a tiny sample of cells is taken from a living animal, like a cow or a chicken. The animal is generally not unalived for this. They just take its cells. Now, the cultivation of it all is these cells are placed in a bioreactor, a large stainless steel tank filled with a nutrient-rich soup-like liquid that's full of amino acids, sugars, and vitamins that mimics the animal's body. God, that's so weird. And so what happens when it's put into this soup-like liquid, the cells multiply very rapidly. Now, they have the scaffolding. To give the shape of a steak or a nugget, the cells grow onto an edible structure. That's what they are calling scaffolding. So to make it be in the shape or look like a steak or a burger or whatever, they have a process for that. And then they have to do the harvest. So after a few weeks, there is a solid piece of meat that is ready to be taken out of this Petri dish and put into a package and served or sold to us, right? The people. So why are countries banning it? And we have a video. We're going to talk about that. They're going to talk about that in the video as well as we move along. But as of early 2026, several regions have moved to block this technology. So we have Italy and Hungary. They are the leaders in this ban. Their governments argue that lab meat threatens traditional food culture and the livelihoods of farmers and ranchers, meaning, number one, it's not culturally normal, and this can take a lot of money out of farmers and ranchers' pockets because they basically are like exiting them out and moving forward with making all of this stuff in the lab. So now they, won't be able to sell their animal slaughter, cut up, sell their animal meats and stuff like that as much as they were, or be heavily dependent on them only for meat, because now these people have now come in the middle and want to make meat in the lab. They labeled it synthetic food, and they said it could harm the economy because of that, right? Okay, so then we got to talk about my country here, y'all, and some of y'all country as well, United States. So in Florida and Alabama, these states have already passed laws banning the manufacture or sale of this cultivated meat to protect their local cattle industries. Now, these are the things that we don't know. Critics cite that there is a lack of long-term health studies and the high energy cost of running the massive bioreactors as a reason to stay away from moving in this direction when it comes to this lab meat. We're also going to get into the video. I'm going to show y'all that in just a minute when it comes to Canada and the no label controversy. So Canada might sell clone or lab grown meat without labels. This is a massive situation. So when it comes to transparency, unlike the US, where cultivated labels are required to be on the packaging of the meat, some Canadian reports suggest that if the final project is biologically identical to traditional meat, current regulations might not require them to add that additional label to the meat packaging. So basically, you won't know. Like, you can go into the store and there can be steaks or, beefs or whatever, chickens on the shelf. And some stores may not be required to put that additional label that it is basically lab meat. You could buy it and think that it's just a regular cattle steak, butchered up, like typical meats are butchered up, but actually it's a lab steak. And some people are putting labels on it to let you know that. Some people are not. So I don't know, y'all. If y'all are in Canada, would you be okay eating, like these type of meats, steaks and stuff like that without knowing if it came from a lab or if it came from a farm and animal? Like, how would y'all feel about that? You know what I mean? Oh, hey, Ralph. What's going on, Ralph? Thanks for coming in. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you're having a good day. You're doing well. Starry said, right, Ooh. Like, I don't know. But the thing is just like the way they moving and shaking these days, we can't be sure. We probably, like I said, are already even purchasing meats and steaks off of the shelves that are lab meats, and like they're saying, some places are not required to put on there that it's a lab meat. But let's go on with just a few more stats here, and then we're gonna get into the second video. Okay, so I like this title too. Is this so-called Frankenfood, like Frankenstein? So pro lab meat. Supporters call it clean meat because it's grown in a sterile environment without the need for antibiotics or risk of E. coli or salmonella. Anti-lab meat opponents call it Franken meat, arguing that we don't know the long-term effects of eating cells that have been forced to multiply in a tank, which sounds crazy to me. But anyway, y'all, this is what we're dealing with here in life. So let me just go ahead and play just a tad bit more of this video, and we're going to move on to the second one that I'm going to play for y'all. And it'll give you a more so of a visual of what these meats look like and how they kind of create them in the lab. So we're going to get into that in just a moment. I'm just going to play about 3 more minutes of this video, then we're going to move on to the next one. And I'll meet y'all in the chat.
Reconsidering what's on their plate in the evening or what they're eating during the day because of their concerns about the environment. Is lab-grown meat a potential solution to this?
I think it depends who you ask. I think people working in the industry would absolutely say yes. The people that I spoke to in the past all come from an environmental background. They're vegetarians. They saw a problem. They see that meat consumption is not only stabilizing or going down, but it's actually going up. And they think, here's a problem that needs a solution. So I don't doubt their intentions and their ambition there. But again, because there is a lack of transparency in the industry, there's not very much around in terms of data. So you see these big claims, whether that be 39% less energy and 87% less greenhouse gases, but they're very hard to verify. I did speak to one person, John Lynch. He's a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Oxford, and he did advise some caution around these numbers. The other thing I spoke to John Lynch about were some of the concerns he had about cultivated meat in terms of the climate context. And he did have quite a lot of them. But the key one for me was around carbon dioxide, this key planet warming gas that we all worry about. And the reason why that seems to be such an issue with cultivated meat is because it's very energy intensive to produce as it stands, as is the growth media, this broth that it grows in, right? Now, you may think, well, is that so much of a problem? Governments have got plans to pivot away from fossil fuels and move towards renewables. But actually, if you have very energy intensive industries that are taking more and more of that share of renewables, that could be really problematic.
So impossible for us to know just how green lab meat is at the moment, but how real is the issue of agriculture and climate change?
It's a really big issue, and it's a really important to highlight. You said at the top of the programme around 14% of emissions come from livestock. And that's really important to understand. There are lots of reasons for that. Beef in particular is a huge emitter of methane, and that's because cows, once they chew the grass, they actually burp up methane. And that's a really potent planet warming gas. There's also concerns around deforestation to graze the cattle, but also to grow the crops that they eat. And those crops are also sprayed often with nitrogen fertilizers, which lead to nitrogen oxide emissions, another potent greenhouse gas. So the issue of animal agriculture is really a big one in terms of the fight against climate change. But there are also lots of alternatives. We're talking about lab-grown meat today, but there are plenty of plant proteins. Tofu, chickpeas, lentils, beans, these are all protein sources that come from plants, have a very low impact on the climate and are already widely available.
Where are we seeing meat consumption go up though, Greer?
India? India is a country, basically countries that are developing and becoming richer are more able to spend more money on meat.
Now, we've been hearing how excited some scientists are about all of the opportunity, the potential of lab-grown meat, but I know lots of people who are just passionate about their meat, protective of the industry, passionate about protecting it too. Where are we seeing that kind of opposition, Nick, to lab-grown meat?
In terms of legislation, we've already seen that in the United States. So the governor of Florida has already banned the sale of lab-grown meat. Ron DeSantis, his message was basically, we don't want this fake stuff, get it out of our state. Interestingly, though, he didn't ban research towards more lab-grown meat. Apparently, the main concern was around safety.
But if you're a politician, Nick, in a state where the beef industry is big, it's worth a lot of money. So those are votes too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's competition, isn't it? That's competition for a multi-billion-dollar industry. If all of a sudden lab-grown meat were to take off, it did become a viable alternative to meat which had been conventionally killed, then that's obviously bad news for the industry. So, it's a protectionist measure in as much as it's, a measure on safety grounds.
We're seeing states like Alabama, I think, considering bringing in a ban, Arizona, Tennessee as well. Those are obviously states with big farming communities. Are there places in the US, though, that are considering using lab-grown meat?
Well, at the moment, if you're not banning it, that would imply that you're allowed to sell it. So you are considering using lab-grown meat. There's a lot of money which has gone into this industry, but there's actually not much lab-grown meat being produced for consumers to actually eat.
But what about here in Europe?
Italy has also moved to ban the sale and import of cultivated meat products for very much the similar reasons to Florida. They're basing it on tradition and agriculture. And you can sort of understand that when you think about the food products that come out of Italy, right? Like Parma ham, you know, they're wanting to protect what is seen as traditionally theirs. There does seem to be some sort of culture war going on here between, you know, the lab meat industry and also MPs, and perhaps it's a vote winner, you know?
I think both of the
All right, y'all. So we have reached halfway through the mark of that interview. If you guys want to watch that all the way to the end, that is over on the BBC World Service Network YouTube channel. And yeah, the entire video is about 20 minutes. So we got a little bit over halfway through. So let me move into the next one for y'all real quick, because we got a few other topics to get through as well. So for the next topic, when it comes to this lab grown meat, I have over here, like I said, I was listening to a report, and it's just some, you know, talking points that were coming from Willie D on his live. So he's talking about it as well, and how it is getting approved to hit grocery stores here in the United States. So we're just going to do some audio on this video. It's not that long and short. And then the last one I'm going to show y'all is the video with Canada, and how Canada, you know, basically they may be considering putting the meats on the shelves, but without labels to inform people that it is lab grown meat. So let's go ahead and get into this next video, y'all, and hear a little bit of this audio and conversation on Willie D. He really basically was saying a lot of the things that I was saying and thinking in my head as well, because I'm just like, yeah, something's not right with that. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I don't want to knock anybody. You know, if you eat it, if you like it, if you've already had it, and it's something that you will consider having, please have at it. You know what I mean? But for me, anyway, y'all, let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this, and then we'll move on to the next video. All right, here we go.
And culture. Critics argue that there are still questions about long-term impacts, transparency, and how it could affect farmers and ranchers. How it could affect farmers and ranchers. And teachers and preachers and children and bus drivers and every damn body. What you mean? See, they start talking about how it affects farmers and ranchers. Look, man, how does it affect the people? We're talking millions of people. It's more people than there are farmers, more regular people than there are farmers. How does this stuff affect the people? Look at this stuff, man. Look at this. Look at this. It's stretching beef. This right here is a steak. That's a steak being printed. So let me get this straight. They let a software guy start telling us about biology and science. And then they let this same software guy start being like an authority on food, and they allow him to purchase food companies, food manufacturing plants. This same guy has built his career on eugenics. This guy, Bill Gates, this one right here, he believes in depopulation. He thinks that the world is overpopulated. So he is a huge advocate for depopulation. He wants to reduce the world's population by a few billion. Why would we trust him? Why would anybody trust him? The people who are allowing him to do this are mostly our elected officials. There's only one reason why they would allow this to happen, and that is because they've been paid to sell us out. These bastards have sold us out to the highest bidder. All this dude got to do is wave some money around and he can get his way. The same thing that he does when he enters the continent of Africa. He just go to different countries and wave in the bag and see which one of these leaders, these so-called leaders, are going to take him up on this offer. Who's willing to sell their people out? That's what he does. Just goes to places and see who's willing to sell their people out. Bill Gates don't give a damn about the people in the United States. Why is he in Africa talking about saving children? He don't care nothing about the children in the United States. He got all of that money. What is he doing for them? That whole Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Y'all know what it is, fam. You know, what's understood ain't got to be said. But I will say this. I have not seen anything that makes me say they're doing good work. All of them, they pretend to be doing good work. They pretend that they're always looking out for people's best interest. But there's always the banana in the tailpipe you have to watch out for. So this guy can print meat and make a bunch of money and be praised and go around doing speeches. But if I print some money, I'm going straight to jail. If I print some money, I'm a criminal. My life is pretty much ruined if I print money. Money that somebody used to make transactions. He's printing stuff that people are eating, people are consuming, stuff that is going to eventually kill them. Ain't no telling what he got in there, what type of hormonal agents he have in there that can alter a person's life forever. No telling what's in there. How is this dude allowed to still be walking the earth? How is he allowed to just still do whatever he want to do like that? Well, I just answered my own question. These uncivilized mutts who take his money. Yeah, that's how. That's how. I heard some people saying, man, you know, that's why we just got to support local farmers. Local farmers can be sold too. Local farmers, yeah, hey, it's a good idea. It's a noble idea, but you still got to watch them because all of those farmers ain't created equal. Some of those farmers are also tired of fighting. So you go to them with a good enough deal, a retirement plan, they might bite. I say, if you really believe in this, since it seems like the oligarchy are the ones who are making the decision for the rest of us, if you believe in it that much, let's say y'all feed it exclusively to the elites for a good 5-10 years. And let's see how that work out for them. Now, maybe I'll say even 20. Let's say 20 years. We need this thing to be tested thoroughly. 20, 30 years, let the elites, that's all they eat is genetically modified food. And let's see what they look like in the next 20, 30 years. How about that? Yeah, let's see what type of health effects that they have over the next 20, 30 years. I despise Bill Gates. I really don't like that dude. Like, I mean, he's up there, like he's high on the list. He's extremely high on the list. I despise this dude. Some people say, well, you stop eating meat altogether. Hey, if you can do that, hey, that would be the best thing to do. But I don't even practice that. You know, I don't eat as much meat as I used to, but I still eat meat. And the best thing that you can do if you're gonna eat meat is try to buy your food from, a local butcher. You know, go to a local meat processor, and try to get your meat there. Try to get your meat from those type of places. And from farm to table is the best way to go. But it takes a little work, but if we're gonna live, it's your life, you got one life to live, and nobody cares about your life the way you care about your life. And when you take your final breath, nobody's gonna step in. I don't care how much they love you. Nobody's gonna step in and say, come on, mama, watch out to me, mama, I'll take that last breath for you. Nobody's gonna say that. Nobody's gonna say, hey man, I love you, boy, we friends for life, man. You're a friend of mine here until I die. You know what I'm saying, man? I got it, baby. I'll take that last breath for you. Ain't nobody gonna do that. So you gotta look out for yourself. The people that approve this should face retribution. I mean, all their ass. They should be locked up, man. They should be locked up. Not just locked up, they're killing people. So just like a civilian might kill somebody or, yeah. See, the difference is death is death. Murder is murder.
All right, y'all. So we're going to be moving on for the next video. I just want y'all to hear a little bit of the conversation that Willie D was making. And honestly, some of the things that he was saying, I agree with as well. I had some of those same thoughts and opinions as well. But as far as with him saying, that they're unaliving people and stuff, as far as with these meats and stuff, there have not been any cases that they have coming out and at least told the public as far as this meat making anyone sick or causing them to be unalive. But there are some risks that they have found with certain studies. And so I'm going to just read through a few of those with y'all. Okay, so the number one issue that they found is the alpha-gal allergy surprise. So a study that was published in early 2026 found a very specific risk. Child, these dogs over here playing. Be quiet. Hey. Sorry. So they found a very specific risk that people who have alpha-gal syndrome, which is a red meat allergy that is usually caused by a tick bite, might actually have a stronger allergic reaction to lab-grown beef meat than regular beef meat. Researchers find higher levels of the specific sugar that triggers the allergy to be in these lab-grown cells and meats. Now, they also have unnatural growth concerns. While there are no reports of acute sickness like food poisoning, many critics and the reason countries like Italy are banning it is to point to the lack of the long-term studies. So just like Willie D was saying, hey, if these are the elites that's pushing for this and they're the ones that want to have this type of meat, how about y'all eat it? We do studies on y'all for a long period of time, and then we'll see. Is it safe? Are people going to get sick? Are people going to, be unalive from this? I think more research needs to be done and test studies need to be done. And typically we know, y'all, how they move when it comes to money. They want to push stuff quickly, right? And get to the dollars. But things like this, I feel, need to be, studied for a long period of time before they're pushed out there to the masses. So the cells, they say, are forced to multiply at an incredibly high rate in a tank. Some skeptics question if these immortalized cell lines could have long-term effects on human health that we won't see for the next 10 to 20 years. Sometimes it takes, with these type of things, a while for issues and ailments to develop, So you gotta study it and pay close attention to it for a period of time. And then we have the conversation around the pure versus the processed debate. Some people report feeling off after eating earlier versions of this meat, but it is often attributed to the ingredients used to flavor and texturize the meat. And so fats, salts, scaffolding, remember that's how they take it and make it into the shape that they need to be in, materials are being used that could be possibly making people feel off and not actually the meat itself. So the other tools and things that are, in the mix when it comes to harvesting and growing this meat in the lab could be making people feel a little bit off and unsettled. It's technically a highly processed food, which carries its own set of health debates. We know that there's been talks around processed foods. They have been telling us that processed foods are not good for us, but yet here is a hybrid of a lab processed meat. It's kind of contradicting. And then the safety wins in the counter argument. So the FDA and the USDA gave it the green light specifically because it's cleaner than traditional meat in some ways. So they're saying that it has no antibiotics in it because it's grown in a lab. There's no need to pump it full of quote unquote eggs. And there's no fecal contamination. Since there's no intestines involved, the risk of traditional food poison is nearly at a zero, is what they say, basically. So is this meat making people sick? No. But is it natural? That's the real debate here. So please, people, if you have any type of meat allergies, I would suggest you stay far, far away from this meat as well. Just like the regular meats you already probably stay far, far away from. And if you are worried about long-term effects, the science, it just isn't there yet. And that's factual, and I think that's a big thing that we should have provided to us, studies for a long period of time to prove that this is safe. So let's go ahead and get into the last little tidbit of conversation we're going to have on this daggone clone meat, y'all. I don't want to interrupt y'all appetite for lunch or anything like that. And Lord knows I'm going to be hungry and eating something soon here after this live. So, But now we're going to go ahead and move on to the conversation when it comes to this, as far as this meat being sold in Canada, possibly without labels, and not everywhere in Canada, some places in Canada, without labels that are allowing people to know that this is actually a lab-grown meat and not directly from, slaughter or from the animal. So this is a very short one, y'all. It's just 4 minutes and 39 seconds. So let's go ahead and listen to this together. I'm going to meet y'all in the chat and get these dogs and stuff like that. I'll be right back here.
Meat from cloned animals will soon be hitting grocery store shelves, and new Health Canada regulations will not require meat producers to label whether the beef or pork is coming from a cloned animal. We have heard of cloned situations in the past, but now they're hitting the grocery store shelves. So what can you tell us?
Well, I think a lot of people are concerned. About 2 weeks ago, we were hearing from different industry leaders that Health Canada was going to move ahead, considering the offsprings of cloned animals, not the cloned animals per se, to be sold without any labels, without any risk assessment whatsoever. And also, Health Canada doesn't intend to send out a press release to let Canadians know. So there's a lot of unknowns here, and I think a lot of Canadians are caught by surprise. And if you look at social media right now, a lot of people are a little upset by the fact that these products aren't going to be labeled at all. So you and I won't know whether or not the product actually is coming from cloning whatsoever.
Why are they cloning at all? Do we need to do this?
Well, the intent, I mean, it's essentially cloning is about optimizing the genetic pool of a herd, I guess. It's if there is an animal out there that you feel that has actually provided to the market, the perfect steak with the perfect marbling, you want to, recreate that animal. That's what cloning is. We're not talking about lab-grown meat here. That's totally different. Cloning is about optimizing animal genetics, essentially. So it's by cloning another animal that is perfect for the market, and you do that instead of just going through artificial insemination, which is really the conventional way to do it.
Okay, so I guess, is the government listening to people's concerns?
I'd say yes. I mean, the science is pretty clear from a food safety perspective. There shouldn't be any concerns at all. I mean, there's actually a lot of literature on this issue the last 25 years, but the science is not really the problem here. It's the silence, really, I think, because if you're concerned about cloning, you'll know that there's some trial and error. So if you're an animal welfare activist, if you care about animal welfare, you may be concerned about cloning in general. We do label halal products, kosher products, and a lot of people are wondering, well, why not clone animals as well? So that darkness within the supply chain is making a lot of people feel uneasy.
Yeah, there's been no clear direction as to why they're not labeling this. It's not good.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would want to know, just out of curiosity, if nothing else.
I would too. I would too. Honestly, I think we're again repeating the same mistake. We saw that with GMOs back in the 90s. It entered our food supply, and now we have several people concerned about genetic engineering, and we're not labeling that. There's a voluntary labeling policy in Canada for genetically modified ingredients, but it's not mandatory. And again, we're just not allowing consumers to befriend any technological advancements within the supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, so nutritionally wise, going back to the actual clone meat, it's fine as far as you know for people to eat?
Well, Jennifer, if I give you two pieces of meat, one is conventional, the other one is cloned, you won't be able to tell the difference, to be honest, okay? Because you're basically recreating the same animal. However, if it is labeled and I offer you the cloned meat half price, which one would you choose?
And there it is, the pricing situation.
Exactly.
So it might be cheaper meat in the end.
Well, it costs less. Eventually, it will cost less for the industry to produce meat. So again, without labeling, how can consumers possibly benefit from these technological advances? That's really the matter here.
Well, and we know what meat prices are doing at present.
Exactly, especially beef.
Yes, especially beef. Yikes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sylvain. Always a pleasure to see you. That's Sylvain Charbois, Dalhousie Agri-Food Analytics Lab. Thanks.
All right, y'all. So that was just a quick little chat and conversation. As we can see what it really boiled down to, and you even heard them say it here, within this video, money, right? It's always about the money, the shortcuts, mass producing to cut corners and to save money. And then, and I wanted to be transparent about this video that I just showed y'all. That is from 3 months ago. The first video that I showed y'all was a year ago. So even just as of 3 months ago, this conversation is still in orbit. Things are moving forward as far as it being approved, being put on shelves without labels, and exactly what they said. If they put 2 packs of meat in front of a person, especially considering what we all are dealing with right now, right? Like with prices going up on everything. People are really struggling to make ends meet, trying to save a buck, stretch a buck. So they give you 2 steaks that they put in front of you, right? But they're not labeled any differently. And one of the steaks is cheaper than the other steak. You're going to look at it, you're going to make sure it looks pretty fresh, it's red, there's no brown spots and stuff. You know how you pick your typical meats, and you look at your meats, whether it's prepackaged or you go to the butcher, right? You're going to look at the quality of that meat just from what you can see with your eyes. But what you're also going to see with your eyes is the price tag. And if you're seeing a pack of steaks or a roast or something like that, and one is significantly cheaper than the other, you need to save money. You need to cut costs. You got other items you may need to buy, bills and stuff you need to pay. And so maybe getting that cheaper cut of meat, that's going to be more financially beneficial for you. But with no labels, you don't know that that's the lab meat. You don't know that that's the meat that was created in a petri dish. You just know it's a good deal. You know what I mean? The price is right. You can afford it. Thank God. Praise God for that. And so it'll have a lot of people more susceptible to buying these meats, and not even having the transparency of knowing that it's the live meat. And I think that is something that needs to be fought against very strictly, because I believe us as consumers deserve transparency. And so, because you can even probably tell somebody, yeah, well, this one was made in the lab. This one is just regular, slaughtered steak. If the person has that information and they decide, okay, well, I'm still gonna get this lab one because it's what I can afford, right? At least they have the full and total transparency to make the choice and the option for themselves. They're not being tricked into consuming or buying something that they don't know how it was made or where it comes from. I don't think that's right, and I don't think that's fair. But anyway, y'all, we're gonna take a quick song break. After this song break, we will be moving right along because we got to talk about Cuba, and we got to send out love and prayers to our brothers and sisters in Cuba because they're in a blackout right now, a total blackout. And I just think that is really shameful that with all of this political fights and manipulation, that you would put someone in the dark, and you also would pick on people that have done anything to you. You know what I'm saying? It almost seems like when it comes to like with Trump, we know it's him behind all of this stuff. If he cannot push and bully people into getting into deals with him that he finds beneficial or he wants, then he's going to find some way to strong arm people. And to put somebody in the dark, to strong arm them into some type of deal or business or whatever it is he wants to do, I just think that's nasty work. But let's take this quick song break, and after we come back, we're going to get into those reports here and see what's going on over there in Cuba. I'll be right back, guys. I will meet y'all in the chat while we listen to the song.
Chasing the check, but the weight of the world is a chain on my neck. Look, check the clock, check the pace, check the greed. Everybody sprinting just to get what they need. They don't care about the person, they don't care about the heart. Just a number on a ledger trying to tear the soul apart. Getting paid by the hour, yeah, they stacking up the stress. Why the people at the bottom try to clean up the mess? It's a cycle, it's a system, it's a cold-blooded race. They look you in the eye while they try to take your space. For the love of the money, we're working through the dead of night. For the love of money, trading our time for a flicker of light. For the love of money, they'll sell the truth just to get the pay. Doesn't matter who you are, they're gonna look the other way. For that lean green, mean green, the hustle's got us on our knees. I need the racks, but not like that. I need to win, but keep the facts. Everybody's acting for the digital stage, selling out the spirit for a click on a page. Clickbait the drama, honestly the fake. How much of your integrity are you willing to stake? They're getting paid to hollow out everything we seek. The bank account is heavy, but the character is weak. Check the status symbol, check the bottom line. The pressure of the climb's gonna drive us out of mind. Chasing down a bonus isn't worth the cost of time. Got to have it, I'd rather have the truth. Stop trading all our wisdom and the fire of our youth. Don't let the bottom line change you. Don't be a ghost for a paycheck. Stay real for the people. For the love of money.
All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into this first video here. It's a news report on Live Now News about this blackout that Cuba is currently experiencing. So let's listen to this together, and I'll meet y'all in the chat.
Another matter of foreign policy, Cuba is under new and intense pressures to make a deal with the United States as the island is facing one of its most severe economic crises in decades. Officials there are reporting also an island-wide blackout following a weekend that saw a rare and forcible protest. Fox News Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel has the latest from Cuba.
Cuba's power system has suffered a total collapse. Officials there report an island-wide blackout. The energy ministry suggests the country's electrical system is seeing, quote, total disconnection. Protests are growing in the island nation, demonstrators venting anger about poor living conditions. And in one city, trashing the Communist Party's office, throwing rocks at the building, and some setting it on fire. President Trump sees this unrest as an opportunity.
I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. It's a big honor. It's a big honor.
A White House official tells Fox, quote, as the president stated, we are talking to Cuba, whose leaders should make a deal which he believes would be very easily made. The Cuban regime today extending an olive branch, saying that it is, in fact, open for business.
Cuba is open to having a fluid commercial relationship with U.S. companies, also with Cubans residing in the United States and their descendants. And this extends beyond the commercial sphere. It also applies to investments.
But the regime also took aim at the continued blockade of fuel as a roadblock for further cooperation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is leading the diplomatic effort and says the status quo in Cuba is unsustainable.
Cuba needs to change. It needs to change. And it doesn't have to change all at once. It doesn't have to change from one day to the next. Everyone is mature and realistic here.
Some congressional Democrats have introduced legislation aimed at blocking U.S. military action against Cuba without congressional approval, clearly worried that if there isn't change, the president may use force, as he did in Venezuela, to make it happen. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
And we also have this from the U.S. Embassy in Cuba talking about that blackout, saying that a nationwide blackout, including Havana, happened around 1:54 local time. A disconnection of the national electrical grid occurred, resulting in a total power outage that includes the metropolitan area of Havana. There is no information on when electrical service will be restored. Cuba's national electrical grid is increasingly unstable and unscheduled power outages are prolonged and a daily occurrence throughout the country, including Havana. These outages affect water supply, lighting, refrigeration, and communications. Take precautions by conserving fuel, water, food, and your mobile phone charge, and prepare for significant disruptions. So that's coming from the U.S. Embassy in Cuba today, talking about those nationwide power outages there in Cuba. And we also have this from Fox News, saying President Trump floated the idea that the United States could take Cuba, quote, in some form, saying the island nation is currently weakened after decades of rule by the Castro regime. The U.S. and Cuba talks also continuing as the island is dealing with those blackouts, as you just heard.
All right, y'all. So in the next video, I'm going to let y'all hear from Trump and what he had to say, because clearly we know he don't care. He doesn't care about anything or anybody himself. And it's just nasty just to hear the way that he responds to what these people are going through. It's just disgusting to me. And it's like, I'm just so sick of it. I know a lot of you are as well. And I can't wait. I can't wait till they find a solution for this and get this man up out of here and get things back in proper order. It's going to take a minute because he done messed it up so much now. So we know moving forward how it is in the political structure. He done messed everything up. Next person comes going to fix it. So let's listen to this and his nasty work.
I do believe I'll be having the honor of Taking Cuba, that'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it.
President Trump making remarks this afternoon regarding Cuba after being asked by a reporter, what will taking over Cuba look like? More like Iran or Venezuela? Now, this comes as the island nation's power grid completely collapsed today, leaving the country without electricity. And about 11 million people on the island have no power, leaving them little to no access to basic services like water, food, and medical care.
Yeah, and the crisis is sparking protests throughout that country. NBC6's Kim Nguyen is live in our newsroom with the latest and with how local leaders are reacting. Kim.
Yeah, that's right. And the massive power outage is the latest crisis to hit the island as conditions keep getting worse. The frustration from people on the island has started to boil over into the streets.
This is how things look on the island of Cuba right now. No lights, no power, and millions of people left in the dark. On Monday, the country's entire electrical grid collapsed.
The Cuban government announced that the entire island is going to be in a blackout.
It's the latest crisis to hit the struggling nation, which hasn't received a drop of oil in about 3 months due to a U.S. blockade. No gas has led to empty highways. No power has led to women delivering babies in dark hospitals. Frustration sparking protest on the island for the past 2 weeks. In Morón, demonstrators attacked and burned a Cuban Communist Party office.
You know, we're seeing more and more of these demonstrations spring up, the Cuban people being bolder and bolder.
On Monday, Congressman Carlos Jimenez spoke briefly about conditions there.
They're fed up. They're fed up with not having any food, without any medicine. And when you push at people so far, they'll start to shove back.
While speaking with reporters at the White House, President Trump said this when asked about what the next steps for Cuba will be.
I can tell you that they're talking to us. It's a failed nation. They have no money. They have no oil. They have no nothing.
And on Friday, the leader of Cuba confirmed that the country is in talks with the U.S. He said that they are in the initial phase of those talks. For now, we are in the newsroom. Kim Nguyen, NBC6 News.
Kim.
All right, y'all. So let me play this last video for y'all. And this is just an inside look as to what these people are dealing with now that they're in this blackout, how they are trying to survive, how they're trying to make it. And as you hear, nasty man over here, he have no remorse whatsoever. That he's up here talking about he'll take it. He's just going to take it. He's going to take Cuba. Take Cuba? What are you talking about? I just cannot believe the things that come out of this man's mouth. It really enrages me because it's like, what authority do you think you have? Who do you think you are? You know, the audacity and the supremacy and privilege of some people, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. But yeah, let's see. Let's go ahead and see. Nobody would want to be going through this. Nobody. All right, y'all. So I just want to show y'all a little bit of that, as to what it's looking like in the streets, in the areas where people are out. They're together, they're bonding together, they're staying together. But as you can see, it's total blackout. And at night, it's even worse, right? Because there's no natural daylight. So they're just sitting there in the dark. There's no electricity. The food is spoiling. They can't keep their food fresh and cold. They don't have any lights to see. They probably don't have any hot water. Like anything you think about electricity benefits, they have none of that. And the entire island of Cuba is going through that right now. And I just think that it's just nasty work that Trump just sits there so smug as he's doing these things to people and putting people in a real struggle and a real chaos and a real panic. But yeah, so the Cuban Ministry of Energy and Mines reported a complete disconnection of the national electrical system. This isn't just a rolling blackout. The entire grid for almost 11 million people has failed. While officials are working to restart the thermoelectric plants, the system is so weak that any attempts to bring it back online risk further setbacks. Now, the primary driver behind this collapse is a massive fuel shortage. January 2026, the Trump administration issued a stern warning of heavy tariffs on any country that sells or provides oil to Cuba. The Venezuelan connection, traditionally, Venezuela was Cuba's lifeline. However, following the U.S. intervention of Venezuela earlier this year and the arrest of Nicolas Maduro, those shipments have completely stopped. Now, Mexico and Russia, both countries have historically also helped Cuba, but under the threat of U.S. tariffs, Mexico temporarily halted deliveries in late January, calling it a sovereign decision. President Miguel Diaz-Canel confirmed that the island has not received a single oil shipment in over 3 months. So we're seeing a crumbling infrastructure. Even if Cuba had oil, the grid is physically falling apart. Most of Cuba's thermoelectric plants are decades old and way past their normal useful life. Because the government lacks hard currency, US dollars, they cannot buy the spare parts that are needed to fix the plants. They have been forced to burn heavy oil in these plants, which is high in sulfur and is literally corroding the machinery from the inside out. This is no longer just about lights being off. We got to talk about hospitals. Tens of thousands of surgeries have been postponed. Only a few major hospitals are running on emergency generators. When it comes to food and water, without the electricity, refrigeration is gone. Residents report that what little food they have is spoiling. Water pumping systems are failing in many regions. When it comes to education, schools and universities across the island have been closed indefinitely. And so, yes, they're beginning to protest because there is political unrest. And I don't blame them. Rare and violent protests are breaking out. As of March 13th, a violent protest erupted where a building belonging to the ruling Communist Party was reportedly attacked and destroyed. They have student sit-ins. University students in Havana staged rare protests against the disruption of their education and lack of internet. And then, of course, there's the U.S. response with nasty work. President Trump recently stated Cuba wants to make a deal and suggests that regime change or a friendly takeover could be on the horizon if the crisis isn't resolved. So again, bullying people into making a deal and going into business. And then if they don't want to, or they decide that it's not a decent deal for them, they're not going to get what they need out of the deal. Why should they have to conform just because you want them to? And because they say no, you put them in a total blackout. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. And Kirsty say, I didn't even realize this was going on. Yeah. And this is another big thing too, when it comes to how they are trying to block, people from having freedom of speech. They're trying to block us from getting the real news and the real information as to what is really going on around here in the world. They try to hide all of that and censor it. because they want to hide the nasty work that they're doing to people. But guess what? We got the internet, and we have independent journalists, and we sit and we talk amongst each other. We connected with so many people all over the world, and we can give real accounts for where we at and where we sit and we stand as to what is going on in our countries, our states, and our cities. And I think that's excellent that we're able to communicate these things. And so, y'all, that is what's going on in Cuba. So we will be sending our thoughts and prayers to Cuba. And I'm hoping that all of this ends soon, because it's just every day, another thing after another thing after another thing. But we're also going to go ahead and get into our next topic, which is going to be, what do you want, little man? We're going to be talking about RFK and how he has been blocked by the federal judge as far as his vaccine cuts that he wanted to go ahead and put into place for children. So let's listen in and hear a little bit of that real quick. Let me get that up on the stage for y'all. It's just one thing after the next. And it doesn't even seem like they care about us as people, as humans, like at all. It's all business as usual. Business as usual. But let's get into this, and I'm going to meet y'all over here in the chat, okay?
Thank you, Christina. Breaking news, a federal judge in Boston has blocked Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from cutting back the U.S. childhood vaccine schedule. The ruling stops planned cuts for the flu and meningitis shots after the judge found Kennedy likely broke federal law by replacing a key advisory panel with anti-vaccine members. The legal fight originally challenged Kennedy's move to stop recommending COVID shots for children and pregnant women. Comes as new market data shows the U.S. vaccine industry reached $44 billion last year, accounting for half of the entire global market. President Trump is delaying his March 31st trip to China by at least a month, telling reporters he plans to remain in Washington as the war with Iran escalates. China is weighing in on the war, calling it a conflict that, quote, should never have happened. While Beijing condemns U.S. and Israeli strikes as illegal, it's joining President Trump's call to protect critical oil shipping routes in the Strait of Hormuz. So far, the president's plea for allied military support to break Iran's blockade has met little enthusiasm on the ground. The region remains under fire. Dubai's airport temporarily halted flights after a drone attack, while new strikes hit Tehran. Meanwhile, Israel has launched limited ground operations against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Amid the chaos, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to social media to dismiss online rumors of his death, posting a video mocking the claims. Comes as the total death toll surpasses 2,000, including 13 U.S. service members. The war in the Middle East is hitting Southern California drivers at the pump. Oil exports from the region have plummeted by more than 60%, sending gas prices climbing to their highest level since October of 2023. Here in LA County, a gallon of regular is now averaging $5.60, that is. In Orange County, the average has hit $5.56.
We continue to follow breaking news at this hour. A federal court blocking federal authorities from implementing major changes to childhood vaccine schedules, at least for now. Last summer, you may recall, the Department of Health and Human Services said it would change the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices. Now, that's the committee that makes recommendations to the CDC on vaccination best practices. Scripps News senior White House producer and reporter Jacob Garden-Schwartz has been reading through the judge's decision. And Jacob, walk us through what you're seeing about this significant development.
Yeah, that's right, Del. As you noted, a 45-page decision hitting us here in our newsroom just a short time ago, and really significant in the scope and impact it is expected to have on the Trump administration's proposed changes to vaccine policies. As you noted last year, the Trump administration, HHS, moving to oust nearly all, or in fact all members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, and appointing new members that had views that aligned much more closely with Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr., specifically when it comes to vaccines, limiting the recommendations of how widespread these vaccines should be, and at some points even moving or suggesting that some vaccines should not be recommended altogether. This is important because although these are recommendations, these can have real impacts, not only for people like you and me to, learn from our health authorities about which vaccines the government thinks we should be taking, but also for insurance companies who at times can make coverage decisions based on what these federal recommendations are. Now, Judge Brian Murphy finding in this decision that the Trump administration violated the law by pushing through a number of these changes without Congress. He wrote, quote, "The court concludes that plaintiffs are likely to succeed in showing that the reconstitution of ACIP and the January 2026 changes to the childhood vaccine immunization schedule violate the Administrative Procedure Act." He went on to note, ACIP is not just a committee of doctors or even a committee of public health experts. It is a committee specifically dedicated to the use of vaccines and related agents for effective control of vaccine-preventable diseases. As to that specific function, the newly appointed members appear distinctly unqualified. Now, it's important to note, this is only a preliminary injunction. This is not the final say on the matter. There are further arguments expected in this case, and of course, in further courts, should this be appealed. But this does, at least temporarily, block nearly all of the significant changes the Trump administration has made to vaccines. That includes efforts to cut down the number of diseases that are covered by routine immunizations, attempts to limit access to COVID vaccines, specifically for pregnant women, and a proposed new childhood vaccine schedule that lowered the number of recommended vaccines from 17 to 11. And while the ruling didn't go so far as to require reappointing those old ACIP members, it did say that those that the president and that Trump administration officials appointed were not validly appointed. It stayed their appointment and stayed any votes that they had taken since those new members were appointed to this committee. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics, that's the group that led this lawsuit, along with a number of other health and medicine groups, celebrated the decision. In a statement to Scripps News, its president, Andrew Seen, wrote, quote, "It's a historic and welcome outcome for children, communities, and pediatricians everywhere. The decision effectively means that a science-based process for developing immunization recommendations is not to be trifled with and represents a critical step to restoring scientific decision-making to federal vaccine policy." Del?
Yeah, the judge saying in that ruling that you just read that the committee as it exists right now is unqualified. What happens now?
Well, you will be shocked to learn that the Trump administration is not particularly pleased with this decision. A spokesperson for HHS, the Health and Human Services Department, telling me, quote, "HHS looks forward to this judge's decision being overturned, just like his other attempts to keep the Trump administration from governing." And to that end, ACIP, the advisory committee, was set to meet later this week to discuss and vote on some more proposed changes. We have learned that that meeting has since been postponed. And in fact, our understanding is that committee is not able to meet at all right now while this is going on, as all of those members appointed by the Trump administration have been found to be, void, or at least their appointment has been stayed temporarily. So we do expect the Trump administration, of course, to appeal this decision. Officials with AAP, the pediatricians group, suggested that this could go all the way to the Supreme Court, though they stressed that they do believe that they have the law on their side. And meanwhile, they have also stressed that for those of us who have been tracking these developments and feel a little bit confused by all of these changing recommendations, they have put out their own vaccine recommendations, especially for parents of young children. Those recommendations mostly mirror the previous recommendations before the Trump administration tried to change things. Del?
Scripps News senior White House producer and reporter Jacob Garden reports for us live. Jacob, thank you very much.
All right, y'all. So I'm just curious to see how y'all think, or what you feel about this. Basically, what is all going on, so you could just break it down as to what has happened. Okay, so the district judge, Brian Murphy, issued a 45-page ruling that temporarily blocks the Trump administration and Secretary RFK Jr. from making sweeping cuts to the national childhood vaccine schedule. This ruling freezes the administration's attempts to unilaterally change how America protects its children against infectious diseases. And so what was RFK trying to cut? So in January of 2026, RFK announced a plan to slash the number of routinely recommended childhood vaccines from 17 down to 11. So from 17 vaccines down to 11 vaccines. The cuts: The administration moved to stop recommending vaccines for flu, rotavirus, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, certain types of meningitis, and RSV for all children. What is the reason? Kennedy said. Kennedy argued these changes were necessary to align the U.S. more closely with other high-income nations and to address what he called persistent conflicts of interest in previous vaccine advisory boards. Now, the scientific process and the controversy. The judge ruling wasn't just about the vaccines. It was about how the decision was made. The committee purge. Upon taking office, RFK Jr. fired all 17 independent scientific experts on the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, in one single day. The replacements. He replaced them with 13 new appointees, many of whom were known vaccine skeptics, meaning they don't believe in vaccines. The judge noted that out of the 15 current members, only 6 had any real meaningful experience when it comes to vaccines and vaccinations. They also had legal failure. Judge Murphy ruled that the administration likely violated the Administrative Procedure Act by bypassing the established scientific review process. He called the move an abandonment of technical knowledge and expertise. Now, how does this impact families and doctors? The American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, which led the lawsuit, celebrated the ruling as a victory for kids. For now, the old vaccine schedule will remain the official federal recommendation. Invalidated votes. Any votes already taken by Kennedy's new committee, including a controversial decision to downgrade hepatitis B recommendations for newborns, have been declared invalid. Postponed meetings. A major ACIP meeting scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, has been canceled because the committee is essentially disbanded by the court order. Now, the administration's response. HHS spokesperson Andrew Nixon has already fired back, stating that the department looks forward to this judge's decision being overturned. The administration maintains that the secretary has the absolute authority to set health policy as he sees fit, regardless of historical precedent. So, y'all, let's listen to this video real quick, and then we'll be moving on to our next topic. And this is actually going to be a video where we have a doctor that is actually speaking out on the benefit and of this being basically knocked down, because these vaccines are important for children. And that's what it's about, protecting the kids. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit from a specialist when it comes to this. I'll meet y'all over in the chat.
A major setback for President Trump's health agenda. Just a few minutes ago, a federal judge in Boston blocked the administration from limiting COVID shots and changing the childhood vaccine schedule.
Among his reasons, those decisions were not based on science. Joining us now is Dr. Scott Hadland, who's chief of adolescent medicine at Mass General Brigham for Children. Dr. Hadland, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So Judge Brian Murphy issued this ruling in response to a lawsuit brought by several prominent medical groups, including the American Academy of Pediatrics. What is your reaction to this?
Well, I think that this is good for kids. You know, what the judge has told us is that if there are going to be changes to the national vaccine schedule, there has to be a rigorous scientific vetting process that underlies it. And just to remind viewers what happened last year, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. actually fired all of the members of the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices and replaced them with a majority of individuals who were actually skeptical of vaccines. And many of these individuals actually didn't have the expertise or experience to be able to make decisions about vaccines. This group then went on to make major changes to the vaccine schedule for everybody, but in particular for kids, including babies, for some, very serious conditions, for example, like hepatitis B. And so what this judge's ruling does today actually is puts the brake on this process and says, look, we're going to abide by the previous vaccine vaccine schedule, which was science driven.
So how will this decision affect families here in Massachusetts, if at all? We know the state had rejected some of this new schedule, this new guidance.
Yeah, Governor Healy and also our public health commissioner, Dr. Robbie Goldstein, have been very proactive in the Commonwealth about making sure that as the CDC has changed its immunization schedule, and again, gone contrary to the science when they've done that, that actually here in Massachusetts, the recommendation has been actually to follow the American Academy of Pediatrics vaccine schedule. This vaccine schedule used to be in close alignment with the CDC's vaccine schedule, is very scientifically driven, scientifically based. And so physicians here in Massachusetts have largely actually been adhering to a vaccine schedule that is driven by science. So there may not be huge changes here, but I think this will help clear the air for a lot of families who may have been confused about these conflicting messages.
Yeah, as we know, this has kind of been politicized. So more parents, they've been saying no to certain vaccines. Do you think this ruling could change any minds?
Well, it is true that there is a rising amount of vaccine skepticism here in the U.S., but it is worth noting that the vast majority of Americans actually know and understand that vaccines are, they keep people healthy, they're effective, and they are safe. In fact, more than 8 out of 10 Americans know this to be true. And so I think that actually this messaging is important, not necessarily to convince folks who may be skeptical of vaccines, but actually just to clear the air and make it very clear that the vaccine schedule that we use here in the U.S. is scientifically driven. And I would just encourage folks, if you have questions about vaccines, please talk to your primary care doctor. In fact, a survey that came out last week showed that more than 8 out of 10 Americans trust their primary care doctor more than anybody else on these questions. And so I'd encourage folks to dig into that and bring us your questions. It's what we're here for.
Dr. Scott Hadlin with Mass General Brigham. We appreciate your expertise. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So when it comes to this, though, this is a great topic, I think, conversations to have, because I do understand that there's a middle ground when it comes to these vaccinations and vaccines and stuff, because there are a lot of parents and there are a lot of people, period, that they don't believe in vaccines. They don't trust, right? Because of the things that we've seen, especially with this government and the administration we have in place right now, how some of these vaccines and stuff can be actually more dangerous than helpful. And that's people, I believe, personal choice to be able to decide whether they want to be vaccinated or not, or whether they want their children to be vaccinated or not. And so we also are seeing, just like you were saying, Imani, what is a serious issue is like with this team that he has put together after booting the experts out and bringing these people in, they need to have people in place that do the proper research and have the proper expertise when it comes to vaccines. For a long period of time, it seemed that, things were going pretty decently when it comes to the vaccines. And then, it was a big stir as far as when 2020, when we went into COVID, or CVID, whatever, 19. And so during that time, there was a lot of misinformation about vaccines. There was a lot of lying when it comes to them pushing that vaccine for CVID out so quickly. Not enough research and study, like we were saying about the meats, for a long period of time to be sure if it can actually really be safe. Is there going to be long-term, side effects? All of those things tie into vaccines and medicine. And so it would be beneficial to have people in place in these departments that have the expertise and know about these things, have studied for a very, very long period of time, and take, I believe, the proper time and patience when it comes to testing, right, these vaccines and stuff. So, as far as him taking them down from 17 to 11, well, if there are individuals that do stand by vaccines and do want to get their vaccinations and have their children vaccinated, there are certain vaccines now that he's trying to take away that people wanted to get willingly. Give me just a second.
yeah, that's a safe bet. From the impossible to the it is done, the battle's already over, the victory is won. So let the strings soar, let the heavens open wide. I got the creator of the universe on my side. It's here to stay. The morning is here. Something has to break. The morning is here. Something has broken.
All right, y'all. So I just had to go ahead and get JJ a quick little snack, y'all. So I'm sorry, I had to take a quick little song break. But we're gonna get into our next topic here. I hope y'all like that song. It's called Something That's the Break. But yeah, so now we're gonna be moving along from the vaccines with RFK. We basically see it's like, it could be two sides to it. Some people are pro-vaccine, some people are against it. And so basically, wherever it is that they stand on the side of that, they will be able to, make up their mind as far as how they feel about this. But they do have the judge that is ruling against RFK cutting the vaccines from 17 to 11. They want to remain to keep all of the 17 vaccines. And also, it's very questionable because he has changed his team now. And a lot of the people on the team, it has not been proven that they have enough expertise or professionalism when it comes to working with these vaccines. And he's been known to be an anti-vaccine individual. So if he's making decisions based off of just his own feelings and emotions towards vaccines, that may not be fair to, the American people. They should be able to have a choice, whether they want to get vaccines for them and their children or they don't. So you should not be forced. You know what I mean? It's almost like a lot of these things in this administration now is taking the people's voices and their power of choice away, and they're making decisions and choices for you. But let's go ahead and get into this next video. This one was pretty. So Jasmine Crockett, apparently one of her security guards was unalived. And there were some interesting details and facts about said security guard that I guess was not known at the time of hire, possibly not. And so there's a lot around this story. It's a bit complicated, but let's go ahead and listen to this report here, and I will meet y'all over in the chat.
Outspoken Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett just lost the primary for the U.S. Senate, but she's back in the headlines because her bodyguard was just killed by a Dallas SWAT team. Turns out he was a wanted fugitive.
She's one of the most famous Democrats in Congress, a bare-knuckle political street fighter.
You are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI.
Now Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is at the center of a firestorm over how she came to hire a fugitive from justice as her personal bodyguard. The bodyguard was 39-year-old Mike King. He was shot dead by a SWAT team in the parking lot of a Dallas Children's Hospital. Cops say the Congresswoman's bodyguard fled into the parking lot during a police chase and barricaded himself inside his car. When he was forced out of his vehicle by tear gas, cops say he pointed a weapon at officers and was shot.
The Dallas SWAT doctor rendered aid. He was pronounced dead at the scene.
King's real name turns out to be Diamond Mazaire Robinson. Authorities say he was wanted on federal charges of impersonating a police officer and had a criminal record for theft and fraud. King was a fixture on the campaign trail accompanying the congressional firebrand during her recent bid for the U.S. Senate from Texas, which she lost.
We reached out to Congresswoman Crockett for comment, but did not hear back.
Hey, stop the car! Stop the car! Move your car, move your car. Stop! Stop!
Dallas police released portions of dash cam footage and several angles of officers' body-worn cameras leading up to the shooting of 39-year-old Diamond Robinson.
Looks like he's going through Maine. He's going through a red light. Do we have any coverts with him?
In the video, officers are seen following Robinson through downtown Dallas for a car they said was flagged for stolen plates. The footage then cuts to the Children's Medical Center garage, where Robinson is seen sitting inside a vehicle as officers yell commands to get out with his hands up.
During that time, officers offered him opportunities to speak with family members to resolve the situation peacefully, which is a common practice during negotiations.
Get out! Keep your hands up! Stand up!
While exiting the car, Robinson is seen reaching for his waist, then pointing a firearm before the video freezes and shots are heard.
Reach! Don't do it! Don't do it!
At the time of the shooting, Robinson had 2 active theft warrants. Additionally, detectives were in the process of investigating what appeared to be an alleged double life.
He is very good at hiding his true identity. And through great police work from the intelligence unit and the Irving Police Department, we were, through technology, able to determine who his real identity was.
Detectives learned Robinson had been using fictitious information and wearing police-style uniforms to represent himself as a federal agent. They also say he'd been using the alias Mike King and created fake businesses to hire actual sworn police officers for off-duty jobs through a resource called Roll Call.
There's also his IDs that he had. The ID cards were also found inside the vehicle as well, along with some badges. We executed a search warrant on Mr. Robinson's apartment that afternoon and recovered additional badges and additional firearms.
Sources told NBC5 Robinson worked as a security guard for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. That was later confirmed by Crockett herself in a lengthy statement that reads in part, Mike had been in and around our team for years. There was never any reason to suspect that he wasn't who he held himself out to be. What we are learning about his past doesn't fit the person we came to know as Mike King. According to finance documents with the Federal Elections Commission, there was a small payment of $340 to security services to a Mike King last year. As for the company Roll Call, a service police suspect Robinson used to hire off-duty officers, we're told the company is actively working to see if there was a void in its system. Roll Call released a statement as well that reads in part, the individual in question is not and has never been a Roll Call employee. Roll Call actively cooperated with the Dallas Police Department's investigation into the individual in question, and we will continue to work closely with them. Dallas police say Robinson had a professional working relationship with at least one sworn officer, and detectives are interviewing other potential witnesses who may have also had previous interactions.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.
All right, y'all. So that was a bit triggering, to see and watch. But, oh, Lord, I have certain things that I could say. I have certain questions that I have. I don't know if you guys have any questions as well. When it comes to this, it's all a little off to me, right? And there's different directions we could go with this. I don't want to say too much because there's a lot that's still being looked into. And so we will leave it at that. But apparently there was a statement that was made by Jasmine Crockett. And that's going to be coming out pretty soon here as far as, her stance on this and everything that happened. But apparently this guy, he's not who he said he was. He was not who he said he was. And she did not know that, I think there's a lot more as to, how some of these things can slip through the cracks. We know how they're moving and they're operating, even just with ICE and stuff like that, right? There's a lot of individuals that are part of ICE that are not who they say they are. and they're just moving around and operating as if they're officers with actual credentials, and they really don't have those proper credentials. So there's a lot of that going on. We're gonna wait for more reports to come out before I even speak on it. I don't want to say too much, but I do have one more video to show y'all when it comes to this topic, and then after we're gonna move on to our final topic for the live and wrap it up and get up out of here. I will be right back. Let me get this video put up here for y'all.
Dallas police shared new information about a deadly police shooting that killed a man whose true identity was unknown by the congresswoman he swore to protect. The man was shot and killed outside Children's Health Hospital last week, was a longtime security guard for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Police say he was wanted for posing as a federal agent and using a fake name and credentials. Fox 4's David Santendri has more from today's press conference. David.
Well, Steve, this suspect was using a fake name for years, but instead of laying low, he continued to grow his career in security, eventually working right alongside Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Hey, stop the car! Stop the car! Move your car! Move your car! Stop! Stop! Go.
Dash camera footage shows Dallas police officers working to serve a warrant to Diamond Mazier Robinson last week.
Hey, Sergeant, you roll through this light on us. We're continuing on.
Officers lose sight of the vehicle for several hours.
Don't reach for it. Don't do anything.
Later finding Robinson armed in a parking garage at Children's Medical Center. During a standoff, officers used tear gas to get Robinson out of a vehicle. Robinson exited and then pointed a gun. 3 officers fired weapons. Robinson was killed. The handgun in Robinson's hand was reported stolen, according to police. But this case has gained national attention because of who Robinson pretended to be.
He's very good at hiding his true identity.
Robinson had a criminal history, including prison time for auto theft, likely preventing him from starting a legitimate career in law enforcement or security. At some point, he started his own security business going by the name Mike King. He even recruited police officers to work for him while off duty on the app Roll Call, an app Dallas Police Department has been working with since 2024, allowing officers to find side gigs. Mike King's business, Off-Duty Police Services, was listed with Texas's Secretary of State, according to Dallas PD, which allowed him to get verified on the app last year.
But he had been living this for many years.
At some point, Robinson, again under the name Mike King, became a member of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's security team. Crockett says her team followed standard protocols while hiring the man who was able to, quote, somehow circumvent the vetting process, adding there was never any reason to suspect that he wasn't who he held himself out to be. Dallas PD says it eventually flagged Robinson because of an Irving police bulletin about a stolen federal license plate on a vehicle.
Weren't sure who he was at the time.
Police say a Dallas officer who had worked off-duty security gigs for the man known as Mike King spoke up, recognizing the vehicle and its connection to Mike King.
He had just remembered working with him.
That's when a Dallas police investigation uncovered Mike King was Diamond Mazier Robinson.
The intelligence unit had been working on it about a week and a half or 2 weeks or so.
And Robinson had an active warrant for cashing forged checks dating back to 2017 and a parole violation. That's what led us to the deadly standoff at Children's Medical.
Get out. Keep your hands up. Stand up.
Investigators say at times Robinson falsely presented himself as a federal agent.
All right, y'all. So that was just a little bit more of some details as far as the information that has come out so far. And they are going to be releasing more information and more statements. And so I'm going to try to do the updates and stuff when it comes to that, y'all, and bring that back to you so we can see and really get to the bottom of what really happened and what went on with that. But honestly, it all seems a little bit odd to me. I'm just not going to speak on it right now because I believe that they're still doing investigations on it all. But we also going to get to our final topic, okay, moving right along. So one of Trump's administration's top counterterrorism officials, Joe Kent, has announced his resignation over the opposition with this Iranian war. So let's go ahead and listen to some of this report here. People seem to be taking their stances when it comes to this because this war was unnecessary and it was uncalled for, and it was self-started. It was self-started. There's no excuse. There's nothing that they can say, that they can show us as far as why this war started with Iran. They were not a threat to us at the time. And so let's go ahead and get into this report, y'all, and I'll be right back.
And we have breaking news. Top counterterrorism official Joe Kent has resigned over President Trump's war with Iran. The director of the National Counterterrorism Center posted on social media saying, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to the U.S. He also says it's clear we started this war due to pressure from Israel. Let's bring in White House correspondent Karen Travers for more on that. Senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez and ABC's Patrick Reevell in Doha, Qatar as well. Hi to you all. So, Louis, how significant is this resignation?
It's very significant, Diane, because this is a senior U.S. counterterrorism official, a top intelligence official in the administration, and he has been a very strong supporter of President Trump for quite some time. He's former Green Beret, former CIA. His wife actually was killed in a terror attack in Manbij, Syria, 8 years ago. And so he heads the organization that would determine whether there is a terrorist threat to the United States. And the fact that he says there was no imminent threat is very significant because one of the justifications that the Trump administration has used is saying that there was an imminent threat being posed by Iran towards the United States. Now, they haven't specified exactly what they meant, but one of the things that they've pointed to is the nuclear threat, that Iran was on the verge of creating a nuclear weapon based off of their 400 kilograms of enriched uranium. So the fact that you have Joe Kent now offering his resignation is a strong indication of the division within the administration, potentially, of how the war is being carried out, and whether this goes against President Trump's campaign promises not to initiate a war and to end all endless wars. But again, very significant given his position. And especially, I think the key thing to point out is his notion that there was no imminent threat to the United States being posed by Iran. And so I think that again points to divisions within the administration as we're now entering the third week in this conflict against Iran.
Hello, I'm Ana Cabrera reporting from New York with breaking news. A top Trump national security official is stepping down over the Iran war. Joe Kent, director of the National Counterterrorism Center, says, quote, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel. That seismic resignation, as we are seeing escalation in the Middle East. Israel now claims to have taken out a pair of top Iranian military leaders, while Tehran hits key energy facilities across the Gulf and targets the U.S. embassy in Baghdad, all as the Strait of Hormuz remains static, driving oil prices back up above $100 a barrel. But President Trump still insists other nations will step in to help safeguard the strait.
Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react.
Well, so far, we've seen some of America's closest allies reject Trump's request. Let's bring in MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken DeLone Dalanian, MS Now international reporter Inez de la Cuetara in Jerusalem. Also with us, MS Now contributor and New York Times chief White House correspondent Peter Baker, our national security and intel analyst, former CIA officer Mark Polymeropoulos, and foreign policy journalist Laura Rosen. Ken, let's start with this big resignation. We saw a number of intelligence and military officials break with Trump in his first term. How significant is this now from Joe Kent?
Good morning. Well, this is hugely significant because Joe Kent represents a wing of the MAGA movement that is incredibly disenchanted with this war in Iran. You're seeing it on social media, but now you're seeing an actual resignation by a senior member of the administration. The National Counterterrorism Center is a very important agency, particularly at a time when the threat level from the Iran war has been heightened. And we've seen, for example, ISIS-inspired attacks and attacks on synagogues in recent days. And Joe Kent has always been a controversial figure. He was a veteran of the Army Special Forces, and he really represented that sort of non-interventionist wing of the MAGA movement. And also to allege it publicly that essentially the U.S. was goaded into this war because of the Israel lobby, that is a huge statement. It's a controversial statement. There are people, there are MAGA supporters who have made that allegation, of course, that said that essentially Israel jammed the Trump administration into doing this because Israel was going to attack. And Donald Trump even made some statements that made people think that that could have been a possibility. He later walked them back. Trump officials have said, look, this is a joint operation with Israel. They are hand in glove. They are together with the same strategic objectives here. But to have Joe Kent walk away and publicly essentially accuse Israel of drawing the United States into a war and to proclaim that there's no imminent threat, and he sees all the intelligence, by the way, that is a huge, huge deal on him.
Yeah, and he writes, and I think this is important context too in terms of his decision and how perhaps earth-shattering it may be in this country. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. Again, Ken, this is the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. What are the national security implications of this?
Well, look, we should add, though, that Joe Kent has always been kind of a fringy figure in the administration, and he works for Tulsi Gabbard, who has sort of marginalized herself in terms of foreign policy. Remember, she was totally iced out of the Venezuela operation because she has always been a non-interventionist. She's a former Democrat, and she's made some incredibly controversial statements, as has Joe Kent, not really part of the mainstream foreign policy establishment or even the mainstream Republican or even the mainstream MAGA foreign policy thinking. But in terms of the national security implications, it's a huge deal that essentially the National Counterterrorism Center is rudderless at the moment. Again, at a time when there is an elevated terrorist threat. The NCTC was created after 9/11 to fuse domestic and foreign intelligence. It's the only agency where analysts sit at their desks with computers that get both CIA reporting from overseas and FBI case information from home, because there's supposed to be a wall between those things. We don't want the CIA spying on Americans, but we created this agency so that we could sift through things that were lost. Remember, the dots that weren't connected during 9/11. And so the idea that this agency is now rudderless without a permanent leader, it could bode not very well for national security at the moment.
Ken Dalanian, thank you. Mark, let me get your reaction to this.
Well, it's pretty extraordinary. You know, Joe Kent is someone who actually worked at the CIA as well. He was a paramilitary officer, very well respected. This is before his political career. And as he noted in his resignation letter, he lost his wife in the global war on terrorism. So it was a tragic story. He then ran for Congress several times, certainly became part of the MAGA movement, very much, hard right. And then when he went to NCTC, the National Counterterrorism Center, he did so, I think, because of his close relationship with Tulsi Gabbard. And so with this, inflammatory resignation, and of course, Ken's right, the comments on Israel, I mean, I think we should probably expect Joe Kent to be on Tucker Carlson soon. But I do think this also poses the question of what's Tulsi Gabbard's future in this, too, because Joe was very close to her. This clearly he would have done, not necessarily in concert with her, he would have told her, of course. So I wonder if she's on the way out as well, because we have seen tensions within the national security world, for example, between the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, and and Tulsi Gabbard. And then the final point on this too is that, as Ken noted, this is the schism in the MAGA movement, and I think this is now going to be more acceptable for many people to come out and say, well, look, the head of NCTC just resigned. This war is a problem. I'm sure President Trump is not happy today. He campaigned for and was very supportive of Joe Kent. So this is quite a blow.
Yeah, and this is interesting timing, Peter, considering Kent's boss, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, will be in front of Congress tomorrow. And Gabbard's been really silent during this war so far.
Yeah, it's actually very striking because, as we've been talking about, she also has been very skeptical of aggression on Iran. She put out a video just last year from her office saying that people wanted to drive the United States into a terrible war against Iran that shouldn't happen. And she hasn't been saying much at all lately. I think that she's been on the outs, or seen as on the outs with the White House for quite a while. They've now sort of repurposed her into an election denial, investigator. Rather than, the external threats that have been, traditionally at the core of that job, the director of national intelligence. But it does raise questions where she is at this point. It'll be fascinating to see what she says under oath.
And again, this is somebody resigning who was a Trump true believer all along. We've seen other resignations and some firings of people who didn't drink the MAGA Kool-Aid, for lack of a better term. Peter, could this set off more resignations?
Yeah, I think you're right to make that point. This is not a career person objecting to the Trumpian philosophy or the Trumpian way of doing business, as we've seen time and time again over the last year at the FBI, at Justice, at other agencies and so forth. This is a Trump ally. This is one of the MAGA champions. He's a conspiracy theorist, or at least has advanced conspiracy theories involving the 2020 election, involving the January 6th. He's been associated at times with some of the, far-right white supremacist groups. He's distanced himself from them since then. He was the tool of Trump's revenge against a Republican congresswoman who voted for his second impeachment. Joe Kent took her out in a primary, though he lost in the general election. So he's not a career person in the sense that we've seen people step down out of objection to Trump. He's objecting to Trump from the Trumpian point of view, from the point of view of this is what Trump said he would not do when he ran for office. He said he would not get us into new wars. And he definitely is sort of in the Tucker Carlson side of the MAGA spectrum at the moment.
Laura, this is an official statement. The whole world gets to see it. What message does this send to America's allies about the U.S. and Israel's war with Iran?
Well, the Iranians, for one, have been watching the public dismay with the war and gas prices going up, and they see that as an effective lever against the Trump administration to try to pressure it to sue for peace. And we've seen Trump not being very interested to do that. We saw the Iranian foreign minister yesterday deny that he had been in contact with Trump's envoy, about a ceasefire proposal, and saying that, the Trump administration is just trying to say we're talking to calm oil markets, to manipulate the oil prices. So they're watching the U.S. public be dismayed.
Let's turn to Inez in Jerusalem, because Iran has been hitting more energy infrastructure in the Gulf, while Israel says they've now taken out 2 top Iranian military officials. Inez, what more have you learned about these intense new attacks by both sides?
Yeah, Anna, some big news there with the IDF announcing it had taken out 2 important officials within the Iranian regime, including Ari Larijani, who was a top security official. The IDF had announced that it was launching a fresh wave of strikes on Iran, specifically on Tehran. We thought they were focusing on ballistic missile production facilities. Then they said they had been targeting Ari Larijani, and then it was the Israeli defense minister who announced this morning that the strike had been successful. So he becomes the second kind of most important figure within the Iranian regime to be taken out, after the late supreme leader, of course, who was taken out on the first day. The other figure they took out was the head of the Besiege Force. So that is a paramilitary volunteer militia. Both Larijani and the head of the Besiege Force were instrumental in trying to crack down on protests. And we've heard from the Israelis time and time again that they want to see regime change, that regime change has to come from within. They've said they are creating the conditions for the people of Iran to topple their regime. And certainly with these strikes, it seems like they're doing that, because these are 2 figures that would have been key to cracking down on any potential uprising.
All right, y'all. So, what do y'all think about that? Honestly, I'm finally happy to see that people are waking up. And these, like you heard from the reports, these are people that are 10 toes down and think and move and operate very much similarly to Trump. You know, when it comes to him and the MAGA mindset and all of that. But at some point, you know, it gets to a breaking point where you're seeing there's certain things that's just it's not feasible. Enough is enough. It's not making any sense. Okay. So yeah, basically Joe Kent, he posted his official resignation letter on Twitter. Everybody always posting everything on Twitter. And he is the head of the NCTC. He was the man responsible for analyzing every major threat to the United States. That's his position. That's his job. Now, his departure for them seems to be a massive blow to the administration's foreign policy narrative because, you know, they left. But if he's over here analyzing threats to the states and he's saying there is no reason for us to go to war with Iran because they were not threatening our country, there was no threat coming from them. Kent's letter in his direct contradiction of the White House, while President Trump has stated that the war was necessary to stop an imminent attack, Kent, the one who has the highest security clearance, says that is a lie. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. That is a quote from Kent. That is what he said. So he's not just a bureaucrat. He is also a retired Green Beret who deployed 11 times himself within the military force. He's also a Gold Star husband. His wife, Navy Senior Chief Shannon Kent, she was unalived by ISIS bomber in Syria in 2019. In his letter, he also stated, as a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times as a Gold Star husband, cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and be unalived in a war that serves no benefit to the American people. And so there is this misinformation claim. Kent accused high-ranking Israeli officials and members of the American media of creating an echo chamber to deceive the president into believing a swift victory was possible. He warned that the U.S. is being drawn into another never-ending war in the Middle East, similar to what happened during the Iraq War. And so, yes, there is now a big fallout in Washington. President Trump responded to the news by saying, "We don't want those people. We're welcoming the departure." So as you can see, he don't care. Tulsi Gabbard, as the director of national intelligence, DNI, and Kent's direct boss, Gabbard, who has also been critical of the war, has not yet made a comment, but the tensions between her office and the White House is reportedly at an all-time high. Even Democrats who originally opposed Kent's appointment, like Senator Mark Warner, have come out saying that on this specific point, the lack of an imminent threat that Kent is talking about is absolutely right. So when we all see it for what it is, these people are even seeing it, even though this is supposed to be their homeboy, their homie, you know, he put them in these positions, but they still are coming to a point where they're having some level of integrity and some level of common sense where you can see it for what it is. And I think a lot of them are getting out of Dodge because when the chips all come falling down, the blame is going to be on the shoulders and the blood is going to be on the hands of all of these individuals. So I think there may be some part of that as well, where they're trying to, you know, get out of Dodge while they can, because they know this is going to end really, really bad. But I do have a few more things that I want to, you know, just say as some final words here for the live. Before I get into that, I am going to go ahead and play this song again. Y'all said y'all like this song. It's a cute little bop. I think it's got a nice little beat to it. So let me play this real quick, and then we'll do some final words here and get off of the live. Thank y'all so much for coming in and joining. I really appreciate it. And hopefully these topics were very, you know, informative.
miracle is coming, yeah, that's a safe bet. From the impossible to the it is done. The battle's already over, the victory is won. So let the strings soar, let the heavens open wide. I got the creator of the universe on my side. It's here to stay. The morning is here. Something has to break. The morning is here. Something has broken. Cradle and take. Gloria in excelsis. Yeah, yeah. I've been through the fire, walked through the rain, felt that pressure, felt that pain. They told me it was over, told me just give in, but they don't know the power that's living within. Yeah, I'm looking at the mountain, telling it to move. I got a different rhythm, I got a different groove. The chains are getting heavy, well, I'm getting strong. The king is on the throne, yeah, that's where I belong. Now the night is over, I see the day. All the breakthroughs coming, it's here to stay. I face the victory, come what may. It's here to stay. Something has to break. I feel it in the air. I'm casting every burden, casting every care. One night of weeping, but the morning is bright. We're walking out of darkness and into the light. Check the track record, he never failed yet. The miracle is coming, yeah, that's a safe bet. From the impossible to the it is done. The battle's already over, the victory is won. So let the strings soar, let the heavens open wide. I got the creator of the universe on my side. It's here to stay. The morning is here. Something has to break. The morning is here. Something has broken.
All right, y'all. So y'all like that song? Quick little bop, and something positive too, I wanted to do like a little gospel song to keep our spirits uplifted. We can dance and stuff like that to it, but also has a positive message in it. So if y'all like that song, I'm gonna go ahead and publish it. I'm gonna put it up just as like a standalone song on my music channel, and I'll probably put it on this one as well. So that way y'all can listen to it whenever you want to. But yeah, we did go over a few things on the live today. I thank y'all for joining me. We covered a lot of heavy ground. We talked about the lights that are out over in Cuba, the entire island of Cuba, to the food on our plates that's being changed in a lab. And now we have the drums of war that are beating louder than ever in the Middle East, and they don't seem to be stopping. It's easy to feel like the world is spinning out of control, but here is the hope. The truth always finds a way to the surface, whether it's a federal judge standing up for scientific integrity within our healthcare system, or high-ranking officials like Joe Kent choosing his conscience over his career to protect the next generation of soldiers. People are standing up. The blackout isn't just happening in Cuba. It's happening in our information stream. But your presence here, asking questions and seeking facts, is the light that breaks through. And there's many of us that are doing this right now as we need it most. So we aren't just witnesses to this chaos. We are the ones who decide what happens next. By staying informed, staying vocal, we're not losing our heart in this. We're keeping our eyes open. We're keeping our heads up. Because we know love and light and positivity always wins over the darkness, the lies, and the negativity. So y'all, thank you so much for joining me on this live. I'm not sure if I have a different one that I'm going to be doing a little bit later on this evening. I might. It just depends on what Mama's going to do. I think she might have something she wants to do as well. But yeah, that's all I got for this one, y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and end the live. I see y'all really like that song. It gets us up on our feet, dancing and moving. So I'm going to end it with playing that song on the outro. And I will see y'all on the next live. And like I said, I just really appreciate all the love and support and all of y'all who come out to kick it with me for 2 hours or so. Sometimes more if I talk too much. But yeah, that's all I got. Let's go ahead and rock out and bop together. And I will see y'all on the next one. Golden out. Bye.
Is coming, yeah, that's a safe bet. From the impossible to the